You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Good evening. My name is Peter Basserman, and I'm chairman of the Inland Wetland Commission for Branford. We have a regular meeting scheduled for this evening, March 9th, 2023. It is now 7:01. We have a quorum of commissioners so that we can proceed with the meeting. The meeting is a Zoom meeting, which is in accordance with Public Act 22.3. When you're not speaking, it would help, given the number of folk on the call, to mute your device, and to the extent that you want to speak, use the raise your hand feature. BCTV is with us tonight recording. We certainly appreciate that, and it helps get the word out for the public. So thanks again to BCTV. We have let's see, has he joined us yet? We have a new commissioner who indicated he would be able to attend tonight. Hopefully we'll recognize him when he joins us. At this point in time, I think we will do a roll call, having each commissioner introduce his or her name, and then we'll proceed with the minutes. Peter Basserman, Chair of the Inland Wetland Commission for Branford. Suzanne?
This is Commissioner Boda, and Commissioner Begeman will be arriving shortly.
Great. Anybody want to go next?
This is Commissioner Steinberg.
Commissioner Finara, present.
And so we still have 4. How about staff?
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent, present.
Katie Blanchett, Inland Wetland Associate, present.
We have 2 commissioners that just joined.
We have two commissioners that just joined us. Please introduce yourselves.
Might take a minute for their audio to connect.
Yeah. Commissioner Papatonis, can you introduce yourself?
Commissioner Melissa Papantonis, I'm here. I'm just getting home from work. Sorry.
Great, no problem.
Long day.
Commissioner Begeman?
Commissioner Begeman, present.
Wonderful. All right, we have 2 minutes for approval. February 9th regular meeting minutes and the February 15th special meeting minutes. They were sent out as part of the package. By the way, the agenda that we're using this evening is the one marked March 8th. And let's see, first up, the regular meeting minutes. For anybody who has reviewed those minutes, I'll certainly entertain a motion to accept those minutes as presented.
This is Commissioner Boda. I will make a motion that we approve the regular meeting minutes from February 9, 2023.
And is there a second?
Commissioner Begeman, second.
Great. Now moving on to the special meeting minutes of February 15th. Oh, we got to vote?
Yes.
All right, we got to vote. Let's see, we'll do a roll call vote here. Commissioner Boda?
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Papantonis?
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Begeman?
Commissioner Begemon, aye.
Commissioner Finaro,
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Steinberg,
Commissioner Steinberg, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. All right, moving on now to the special meeting minutes of February 15th. Similarly, do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
This is Commissioner
Commissioner
Steinberg.
Boda, I will make a motion to approve the special meeting minutes, February 15, 2023.
And a second.
This is Commissioner Steinberg. I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Again, roll call vote. Commissioner Steinberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Papatonis,
Aye.
Commissioner Begerman,
Commissioner Begemon, aye.
Commissioner Finaro,
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Boda,
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. All right, we have, let's see, applications for receipt, inland wetland 230301, 56 Stony Creek Road. Rebuild the existing barn with 160 square foot addition. Looks like the request is to be reviewed administratively. Was that from the applicant, Jamie?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent, yes. So this was actually brought to the commission once previously with a very rough site plan without any erosion controls or anything like that. The commission said that they wanted to at least see the updated plan prior to making that call as to whether it was appropriate for agent approval. So if you want, I can screen share, and we do have the owner present to give a presentation and answer any questions that you guys have.
Great. Let's proceed on that basis.
All right, so just to reframe this, this is the nest. The commission's seen quite a few applications recently for this property, and the structure is an existing barn that they're looking to demo and rebuild up kind of by the road. So we've got the two entrances / egresses. There was a structure here which has been demoed, and they're looking to rebuild this structure and put a small addition on it to the north. Let me see if I can figure out why my thing isn't scrolling in. All right, so, oops. The wetland area is a heavily impacted, mostly maintained as lawn wetland area. Off to the west and north, there's an existing playscape area. It's a little bit different than what's shown on the site plan. In between the wetland area and the proposed structure, they have added the silt fence and a stockpile location within that silt fence. And I'm just going to real quick pop up to this far corner, and then I can hand it over to the applicant or the commission if they have any questions. Up here in the notes, it says the existing topo shall remain unchanged. There will be a slight increase in pervious area by 640 square feet and slight grading modifications to slope away from the entrance and exit. Hard surfaces at 1/4 per foot min. Finished grade shall be graded pitched away from structure. So looking to have surface flow for the drainage. No changes in the landscaping. And when I asked if there would be any vegetation removal, it was indicated that there would not be, and if should any vegetation be damaged during construction, it would be replaced. So I do also have an aerial image. I'll jump over to that real quick for the commission. This is the existing main building and some of the playscapes from 2022 aerial. Might give you a bit better idea of what's there now. And this is the structure they're looking to replace. In the wetland area, the water course of the wetland area is here, and the wetland edge is probably right about along with the edge of the playscape areas. So.
If the, this is Commissioner Basserman, if the applicant could address something I just didn't understand when I looked at the application material, was for 160 square foot addition, the application said there would be 5,000 square feet of disturbed area. And for such a small addition, I was just curious on how did we get to 5,000 square feet disturbed? And if you could address that in your comments, that would be great.
Sure. I'm Lee Small. I'm the owner. My wife and I, Amy, owned the nest at Shoreline Campus, 56 Stony Creek Road. The structure is an existing structure. Our plan is not to demolish it. It is to rebuild the structure. It is in pretty poor shape, so we may have to dismantle it and incorporate the structure in the new construction, but we are going to keep the barn-like look and as much of the timber as we can in the construction. So that kind of depends on how we proceed with the construction itself, but that's our intent. The 160 square foot addition is really an entryway entrance to the classroom, if you will, which will incorporate some cubbies and just a place for the kids to get changed before they go in and out of the classroom. The way we came up with the 5,000 square feet is just we incorporated all of the area within the silt fence. So although we don't plan on any major disturbance, as I said, we're keeping the existing footprint. There is no footings in that structure at the moment. So we do have to, as I said, dismantle the barn so that we can put a proper foundation underneath it. So there will be some moving of the materials to the stockpile area. So that's just how we incorporated the 5,000 square feet in the total disturbed area. There is one fairly substantial tree to the, I guess it would be the southeast corner, southwest corner, which will be undisturbed. We wouldn't touch that. And there's no substantial vegetation around the building, but whatever is there could be maintained during the construction. The area from the barn to the wetlands is all grassed area. It has matured. We've been there a couple of years now, and it has matured. It's in fine shape, and we shouldn't be disturbing any of that. So it would decrease any runoff, any possibility of anything getting to the wetlands. We do have silt fence surrounding the construction area. We'll also have safety fence to keep the children away from the area as well. Any other questions? I'll be happy to answer.
I guess this is Commissioner Bassman again. I have a question for Jamie. Jamie, did we use the full 5,000 square feet when we determined the fee?
Yes, I believe so.
And is the assessment of that disturbed area consistent with other applications? It sounds like they did everything within the erosion controls, and is that consistently how others have interpreted the disturbed area?
Yeah, Jamie Frederick, and the wetland agent. The area of disturbance should include all area that's being disturbed, whether it's a temporary or a permanent disturbance.
Okay, thank you.
Because it increases the potential for sediment and erosion concerns. The more area you're disturbing, even if it's temporary. And real quick, it looks like Commissioner Meissen is joining. Would you like to see her?
Sure. So what do we have, 7 seated?
Correct.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission regarding this application?
So, no, this is Commissioner Boda. I mean, I think given that there's no changes proposed to drainage, the disturbance itself is small and within an existing footprint. That really is in line with other things that we've done with agent approval in the past. Does anybody have a reason why we wouldn't go to agent approval?
Commissioner Bassman, no, not for myself.
Commissioner Steinberg, I'm fine with it.
So I would be okay with it going to agent approval. Jamie, do you want us to make a motion for that?
General consensus is fine.
Okay.
Does anybody disagree on the commission regarding this application 230301 being assessed by staff as a administrative approval? Sounds like we got a deal.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, inland wetland 230302, 22 School Street, house addition with deck and septic system repair. Jamie, you have a update on this?
This application was withdrawn so that they could make some modifications. So we'll likely get a new application in the near future, but not tonight.
Moving right along, we have a jurisdictional ruling request 180 and 206 North Main Street for vegetation management. This Commissioner Bassman, is this the billboard one, Jamie?
Jamie Frederick, and the wetland agent, correct. The project was largely influenced by billboard maintenance. And sorry, Peter, your screen is going crazy. Sorry, okay. So a lot of this project is actually in the state right of way, and the state has issued an encroachment permit, which falls underneath their general permit, and any activity regulated by the state is under the sole jurisdiction of the state and is not regulated at the local level. So the only activity that would be being reviewed by the commission would be activity on privately owned property, which is a minimal portion of the project. And they're asking for the commission to consider it as a right activity, I believe, under conservation type rationale, but I will let the not applicant, but for lack of a better word, applicant present their case. Requester.
Okay.
Hi, David Roach, All Habitat Services, appearing as the agent for Lamar Outdoor. These are easements where Lamar maintains billboards. And this is a fairly standard practice. It's been going on for a long time. It's new to us. And as Jamie has said, the bulk of this work is in the DOT right of way, which we have been permitted for. What we're looking to cover is there's just a little bit of vagary as far as the property lines on the map as to where it actually lines up. We've compared some survey points, and we just, we may spill over 10 or so feet along the length of some of these where the invasives have migrated into the upland. And so we'd like to take all of the invasives out so that we can eliminate the complete seed source and infestation. So that's largely what this project entails. And this is kind of just a cover in case we find that we've bled out of the right of way and into the easement for the billboard on the private property.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I will share the maps that were provided. So hopefully everyone can see. I'm zoomed in so that you can actually see it. This is 95. The green area is the proposed work area. As you can see, a majority of it is in the state-owned right-of-way for 95. A little bit of work proposed closer to the billboard. And then the other location it's shown as being entirely within the state right-of-way. We do have a wetland delineation, and this area is classified as wetland, but again, it's state-owned property. And I'll just jump over real quick. I did a GIS map. So we're looking at approximately this area here. And I believe somewhere in this area here as well for this billboard.
It's Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, where is the billboard on this plan on the map?
On the map you're seeing right now, or?
Yes.
So there's one here, and then the other one, I'm gonna have to toggle. The other one, I don't think you can see it because, yeah, you can't see it because I have this layer on, but it's somewhere in here.
Okay. Well, I guess I have a question for the party that's trying to get a jurisdictional ruling here. Is the driver for this just invasive management? Is there a visibility issue with that, so that you need to clean it up in order for the full billboard to be viewed? I mean, what's the driver?
So it's actually a two-part. The logic here has sort of two parts to it. Yes, it is invasive species management. Those invasive species reach a height that impinges on the view shed from the cars passing on 95. And so in order to maintain the view shed into the billboard for sight lines, they've been managing vegetation historically in these areas. Our role is to sort of change their practice. The permit allows for cutting, and we're actually introducing the idea of managing the invasives in favor of more desirable native vegetation that does not achieve a height that would interfere with the view. So we're sort of, in this case, converting the right-of-way vegetation from an invasive monoculture into a more diverse native matrix that would also be compatible with the interests of the tenant who has the easements for the billboards.
This is Commissioner Basman. So is this is this your first attempt at that particular strategy with this site?
In this application, yes. We were just recently hired by Lamar to begin these conversions on a number of their sites. They're looking at an alternative strategy to just repeatedly cutting year after year. They'd like to alter the vegetation to be a more suitable matrix of vegetation for their needs. So we've done this type of work many times in town, all over the place. So the type of work is very familiar to us. It's just our first round in terms of billboards and working with Lamar.
Thank you.
And this is Commissioner Boda. Mr. Roach, so you're seeking an as-of-right ruling under the principle that you're doing invasive work, not that, excuse me, not that's on the state property, but the section that isn't on the state property, you're seeking a jurisdictional ruling on the notion that you're working on an improvement toward the wetland, not necessarily filling.
Right. So in this case,
so
not everything. I'm sorry.
Can you talk a little bit about the mechanisms then that you use for the invasive removal and native restoration?
Okay, sure. Yeah, and so to answer your question, not everything happens for the right reason. But in this case, Lamar is interested in improving the quality of the view of their billboards, and the win for the environment is improved ecological services in the site because the native vegetation is more suitable to their needs than the non-native. So yes, we're trying to convert invasive species into a native matrix of vegetation. So we'll begin with cutting to remove all of the dead biomass. And then later on in the year, when the Japanese knotweed, Phragmites, various species that are growing in there would appear, we'll apply herbicide to control those and sort of release what's there for native vegetation. And so we have plans for, depending how this works in terms of conversion, we would consider, we have plans for planting, seeding, a variety of mechanisms. Typically, as you know from previous projects we've done here, come before this commission, that there is a generous seed bank of native species that typically flushes out when we control the invasives. And so we would encourage those native species to thrive and then supplement where necessary.
Thank you. Again, Commissioner Boda. So can you elaborate a little bit? You said herbicides on the knotweed, and can you just talk a little bit about how those herbicides are, which herbicides are, how they're applied, so that we can better understand the impact to the wetland itself?
Certainly. Again, stuff that we've done, very familiar with this commission on projects. Aquatic labeled herbicides, in this case, the active ingredient is imazapyr. It would be applied to the vegetation by a low volume backpack application. So this is specifically targeting the plants very selectively and managing them to control their growth.
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. I'll take this second of silence to just mention that Commissioner Armorad has joined the meeting, and also to let the commission know I can share section 4.2 of the regulations on the screen if you think that would be helpful.
Thank you, Jamie.
4.2 is what, Jamie?
Permitted use as of right.
Sounds like a good screen share.
So the applicable section is item A, conservation of soil, vegetation, water, fish, shellfish, and wildlife.
And not to rush the commission, but this is something that would need a motion once you're done asking questions.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, do we have other requests for jurisdictional ruling on similar projects for invasive species management that we have reviewed?
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. Yes. I would say it would not be out of line for the commission to consider this to fall under section 4.2A. I think that there has been a little bit of change in practice in recent years to an extent, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad practice, because if you read this language and you interpret it falls into that language, then per state statute it should be non-regulated. So I think lately kind of one of the thresholds that the commission has used is whether or not there's ground disturbance as part of the project or some other activity that wouldn't be purely conservation. And I don't mean like that could be perceived from another vantage point. I mean more like, and while we're in there, we're going to put in an observation deck or something like that. Although that could arguably be exempt for other reasons. So that was probably a bad idea, but I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And again, this is Commissioner Ressner. Again, we're only talking about that area, not in the state controlled area.
Correct.
Well, I think that now that 4.2A is in front of us, and we have used 4.2A in the past, I don't personally see anything that pushes this into something that should be regulated. One man's opinion.
This is Commissioner Boda. I agree. I think that the purpose is wetland enhancement, which is always a benefit regardless of the motivation of the property owner. That's sort of irrelevant. It's the action in this case that matters, and the targeted backpack spraying. I mean, I think that is specific. I'm not familiar with the herbicide, but I would be comfortable ruling it as of right under 4.2A. Does anybody not want to? Are we ready for a motion?
Before there's a motion, I'll just mention we now have 8 commissioners. So the first 7 commissioners present were seated. So all commissioners can talk about items on the agenda, but only the first 7 seated can vote on motions.
That hasn't happened in a really long
time. I know.
Exciting.
We probably have a record number of commissioners on the meeting tonight for the last, I don't know how many years.
Years.
It's exciting. Okay, that being said, I will make a motion that we rule the activities on 180 and 200, 206 North Main Street vegetation management and as of right activity under 4.2A of our regulations, given that the work that's being done is to remove invasives and enhance the native plants in the wetland area.
Commissioner Finaro. Oh, Commissioner Finaro, I'd like to second that.
Go ahead. Who is speaking?
Commissioner Finaro?
Would you like to second it, Commissioner?
Yes, please. I would like to second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Oh, I guess we got to do a roll call vote here. Jamie?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Commissioner Boda?
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Finaro?
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Begeman?
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Steinberg?
Commissioner Steinberg, aye.
Commissioner Meinson?
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
Commissioner Papantonis?
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. And that's 7. Okay, thank you. Good luck with that species removal.
Great, thank you. Thank you to the commission. Appreciate it.
All right, now we have some applications for review. 11 Howard Avenue, which is in the wetland 230101 for a residential addition. Any background on this, Jamie?
Jamie Frederick, and the wetland agent. This application has been reviewed by the commission, I think twice previously. At the last meeting, the commission wanted a staff report to be prepared prior to making a decision. I believe you can all see a GIS map. Residential property, looking to put a one-car garage addition on the northwest side of the house. Wetlands have not been delineated, but appear to be located off-site. Site plan shows the garage, and there's a chicken coop and shed in between the structures and the wetland area, and they are proposing a silt fence. The proposal is to tie in the drainage from the additional structure into the existing drainage. It's not entirely clear where that drainage goes. The owner thinks it discharges at the base of this small retaining wall into the driveway area. So I don't know if the commission has any additional questions, or if you want to start reviewing the staff report, or an opportunity to review it ahead of time.
This is Commissioner Bassman. There was no additional information provided between the last meeting and now. Am I right on that?
No additional information, just the staff report was drafted.
Why don't we get to the staff report then?
And this is not only actionable, but a decision needs to be made this evening or an extension requested. The wetland appears to be off-site, probably about 20 to 40 feet away from the proposed garage. As I mentioned, he's proposing to use silt fence, stormwater tie into existing, no landscaping proposed. Variance was obtained from the ZBA. I believe owner will need to get approval from planning and zoning. I'm not sure if they'll need a basic zoning permit or special exception. So recommended considerations for permit conditions, should the commission decide to approve the application, is an initial erosion control inspection prior to start of work, final inspection once work has been completed, and just a condition that says no stockpiling of material shall occur on site, consistent with verbal guarantee by the property owner, as that's what was represented at the last meeting, and then the standard conditions and general provisions of all permits.
Did the staff report stimulate, Commissioner Bassman, did the staff report stimulate any further questions from the commission?
I'm good.
Does anybody feel that the conditions as suggested by staff be amended? Guess we're ready. We're ready for a motion.
And the owner is present. I know they were having some issues with their audio. I can't see them and screen share at the same time.
Talking, but nothing's coming out.
You're muted.
Mr. Consolo, you're muted. It looks like you're trying to speak.
This is Commissioner Bassman.
He also called in via a phone, so I think he's trying to unmute on that, and I'm hoping I'm asking the right phone number to unmute.
Nope, still muted.
Right.
Alternatively, Steve, if you have any questions or comments for the commission, if you want to type them into the chat, I can read them out to the commission.
Jamie, as a host, can't you unmute him?
He's on a phone for the audio, so I can ask him to unmute, but I can't actually unmute him.
Extra? We brought in the expert now.
I'm going to direct message you, Steve, so that way you can maybe respond. Any questions?
I guess,
Yes.
this Commissioner Branford, to move this along.
He can talk.
Oh,
He's unmuted.
great.
Can you hear us now?
You
Yeah, great.
Okay, Jamie, I'm not a computer guy, so I'm sorry. Bear with me, guys. Well, thank you for, your patience. But yeah, I am the homeowner here at 11 Howard Avenue, so go ahead, whatever you have to do.
The extension from Jamie was, did you have any questions for the commission, sir?
No, I don't. Thank you.
So are we at the point for a motion to be presented here?
This is Commissioner Begemon. I'll make a motion that we approve application Inland Wetland 230101 11 Howard Avenue for residential addition with the possible conditions as written in tonight's staff report and the standard conditions and general provisions.
This is Commissioner Finaro. I'd like to second that.
Any discussion further now that we've had a motion and a second on Howard Avenue? All right, let's take a roll call vote. Commissioner Steinberg?
Commissioner Steinberg, aye.
Commissioner Begemon?
Commissioner Begemon, aye.
Commissioner Meinson?
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
Commissioner Papantonis?
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Finaro?
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Boda?
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Baskerman, aye. Okay, good luck.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good night, guys.
You too.
Okay.
Inland Wetland 230102.
So this is Chairman, this is Commissioner Boda. Just a point of order for the other commissioners, your request for like additional comment. And for the motion, the only comments that can be made is about the motion, not about the application itself. Just so we're all on the same page.
Thank you for the clarity. Okay, 76 Greenfield Avenue, 230102, regrading and expansion of driveway in an after-the-fact condition. Jamie, update, please.
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. So this was in response to something that came to my attention. I brought it to the commission's attention. Commission requested a notice of violation be sent. One was sent, and the owner responded by submitting an application. They were not requested to submit an application, but I think they saw the writing on the wall. And so I met with the homeowner, I want to say on March 1st, out on site. Of course, that was the one day this year we had snow on the ground. But I did get an updated sketch and I got some photos. I don't know that the homeowner's present. He indicated he'd be traveling. I'm not sure who this phone is. I'm going to ask you to unmute. If you're here for this item, feel free to talk. If you're not, then just ignore my request. So I will, I guess, share the updated GIS map. Of course, it's sideways, and it won't let me rotate it.
We're not under the gun on this one time-wise, correct?
I believe that we are. Yes, the decision has to be made or an extension requested, and if the applicant isn't present.
Right, that's what I was wondering.
So let's see. All right, is everyone seeing a GIS map?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the approximate driveway location has been sketched on here. We measured the distance back and over. And then this area is kind of more approximate than actual measured. And the property line, as you can tell, is a little bit funky. Our GIS is an approximate tool for property boundaries. It can be off by very little bit, or it can be off by as much as 30 plus feet. So back when this addition was put on the house, there was a survey used which showed the property line over here, and the owner has indicated the property line that he's planted these trees on the property line. So should the commission decide to act on this application, I did draft condition language that basically addresses the fact that commission's reviewing this with the understanding that all the activities on 76 Greenfield. So that way, you know, should anything, you've got that information in there. So let me see. I don't think I pulled up. All right. So here you can see the back of the driveway, and you can see that there's some smaller trees for the most part, and there is some herbaceous undergrowth as well. The owner is requesting to leave it in this natural condition rather than planting it with any new vegetation. I think where this yellow sign is about where he was indicating the Regional Water Authority property starts. And this is an example of what the ground condition looks like. As you can see, it is covered with leaf litter, and it seemed quite stable. And being out on the property, it looked like the slope at the rear of the driveway was consistent with the slope at the rear of the lawn. It looks to me like that slope was established probably the last time that they went in and regraded the site, which was likely when they did the addition. I don't think that this material is not all gravel like the driveway. So I don't, it is in fact a earthen material, and it is stable. But it definitely is fill. But again, I think it's been there for a while. This is the gravel condition of the driveway, and these are the trees located on the property line. So this is the homeowner wanted to indicate that, you know, he's planted the trunk of the trees on his property line, and this is set in probably 5 or 6 feet from the trunk of the trees. And I didn't get a great picture of it, but I did look underneath just to make sure the material wasn't significantly higher than the grade underneath the trees, and it's not. So it's not like there's a mound of gravel and then a drop down into the tree line. I did also get kind of answers to questions. He has no plan to pave the driveway, leaving it as gravel. All work is done, so there's no additional work. Do not plow all the way to the wood line, as you can see from the pictures. Green giants on property line. And then he also indicated that he did not remove any vegetation to extend a driveway.
Is Commissioner Basserman. And on the other side of the planted trees is the water company property?
On the other side of the trees is another residential property. And then the Regional Water Authority property is behind both of those properties.
So when you say, this is Commissioner Basserman again. So when you say another residential property, is that number 80?
Yes.
Oh, so that yellow flag was some distance from his property line.
Yeah, the yellow flag was probably somewhere back in here. And then this is where those trees that the last pictures were.
Okay. Right.
And there's probably a couple of spots where you could throw in a plant or two along the back of the driveway without having to necessarily remove vegetation, but I mean, there is definitely undergrowth there. And there are a lot of saplings along that rear edge.
Amy, this is Commissioner Boda. Can you clarify where the end of the drive is? Is it that perpendicular line or is it the end of the red line?
It's this line here. So to kind of clarify a little bit, the blue lines and writing is the owner, and this red line was a very rough approximation I did of the property line based off of a cut sheet of a survey in our files from the house. But I did it quickly. And I could have been off. And also, I don't know for sure that it was at the correct scale because I didn't have enough information to confidently align it with the GIS map, if that makes sense.
This is Commissioner Bassman. I want to make sure I understand this, Jamie, because I think the way it looks on this drawing is that the trees were planted not on the owner's property, but on the neighbor's.
If you look at the base GIS map, but if you were to go into our GIS system, it has a disclaimer and it says, this information is approximate. It shall not be used for planning purposes. So this is an instance where the GIS map could be very wrong. But I don't know without a survey.
Well, and Commissioner Boda again, so the perpendicular line that represents the end of the driveway near that 45 number, what is the distance from there to two places? It looks like the tree line is just behind it, and then from there to the tree line and there to the wetland.
So we don't have an actual wetland delineation, so I cannot answer that question. But I can tell you that this is the assumed property line, and this is the edge of the driveway, which I think it's actually a little bit closer to this house. But from one end of the driveway to the other end, it's 45 feet at its widest point. And so this measurement from here to here is to scale, that is 45 feet. So if you were to pivot that, it would get you, I don't have a scale on me. It would get, it's more than, it looks to me like it's more than 45 feet / about 45 feet. But that's, again, not based on an actual wetland delineation.
And so the question, this is Commissioner Boda, so the question before the commission is, do we want to codify the driveway? So the application is an effort to codify the action without a permit.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm struggling with, because based on the comments from staff, the wetland is not impacted with what was done. And we want to make sure that it's not going to be at risk. So we're not going to want that driveway paved. But the only problem with the codification is it's based on, assumptions that we really don't have a scientific basis for.
This is Commissioner Begemon. Is this meant, I can't remember now when you started, is this meant to be the application?
Yes, Jamie Frederick, inland wetland agent. This is the plan that was submitted for the application.
And along with the text that says, this is Commissioner, along with the handwritten note that says they won't pave.
And there are a couple of other iterations of this sketch as well. but.
This is Commissioner Begamon. What is the bare minimum we would, if this had come to us beforehand, what's the bare minimum, that we would expect in an application? Do we need the property lines? Do we need the wetland delineated? Like, what's the bare minimum?
So Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I mean, the regulations essentially say that an application shall submit an A2 survey unless waived by the agency or the duly authorized agent. On a driveway, probably would waive a significant amount of that information. With the property line being what it is, it probably would have asked for some additional information to support that. Given where they were looking to expand it. If it was clearly within the property lines on the GIS map would totally usually be acceptable with a sketch drawn out to scale. And I do think it's somewhat important to consider in this particular case, the fact that there was that addition application in 2010, 2011, where there was property line information that indicated the property line was further north. And I guess what I'm getting at is the commission regulates activities, and it's very messy, but I do think that there is some room for the commission to say, okay, it's being represented that this activity is all on 76 Greenfield. If somebody submits information refuting that then gives the commission the ability to reassess and potentially void the application, because you need authorization from all property owners.
Yes.
And
This Commissioner Rassman, but you just triggered something that says if a condition of approval here would be the approval by the abutting property owners. And
no, so essentially the condition of approval isn't really a condition of approval so much as a warning of, hey, should it be demonstrated that the information provided was not accurate, the commission has recourse.
This is Commissioner Boda. I think the other thing to consider, again, kind of going back to the activities. So when we've had applications in the past without a wetland delineation, it's really been a question of what we rely on the town maps, and the times that we've required, in especially like because we're talking about roughly 40 feet, and that it's vegetated between the end of this semi-permeable driveway plus vegetation. The thing that would trigger needing to have a wetland delineation done is that the property owner contests where the wetland line is. And in that case, we say, okay, you think it's further away, you have to prove that. They're not contesting that it's where it is based on the town map. I think given the distance, given the vegetation in between, I'm not overly concerned, and that it's not paved. I'm not overly concerned about approving this this driveway, but that's just me.
This is Commissioner Rassman, but I guess I listened to Commissioner Begerman's comment, which is, if this was not an after the fact and it was an application that somebody presented to us for the first time, would the information that's been provided on this application be sufficient to gain approval, or would we look for additional information?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I think from my vantage point, the biggest concern I would have would be relative to the property line and not really knowing where that is. I don't think that the GIS line is right in this case, but I don't know where it is. I think given the fact that it's already been done, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that doesn't sit well with me, but I mean, it is there. We haven't received complaints that, you know, it's encroaching on a neighbor's property. I do think, though, since that information has not been provided, it's a bit messy, but I think it's appropriate to have language in the permit addressing the property line. So that way, should there be a concern down the road, it's not, oh, well, the commission approved this activity on my property. It's no, the commission approved this application with the information that was provided. And there is, if you look back at historical aerial imagery, you can see this boat has been parked in various places along this tree line, and other vehicles have been parked back here. It seems pretty clear that this property owner has been utilizing that area. I think that there's enough of a slippery slope that the commission might want to address that. Should you find
so? This Commissioner Papantonis, I'm not going to comment on Ever's possession or not of whether the boat's on whose property, but I think if this were coming to us as an initial application, I think we would have probably required the A2 survey, or at least a better delineation of what the property line is, because if this activity happens to be on 80's property and that comes up later on, I don't think it's fair for us to do that to that property owner. So that's my comment.
Clarification, which property owner, 80 or 76?
8. That if this activity turns out, this Commissioner Papantonis again, if it turns out it was on 80's property, then I think if this were coming to us as an initial application, that we probably would have been a little more forceful on the survey. And just because it's been done doesn't mean that we should forego something that we would have done had this been an initial application before the work was done.
Yeah. So this is Commissioner Boda. I think that, I'm not sure that we would have, it's hard to say now because it's all after the fact. I think that we tend to be much more forceful about A2 surveys, again, when the wetland line is in question. The property line, we can certainly, like Jamie said, incorporate some language into the ruling. But I think when it comes to things like sheds and driveways, that's something that we've done often with hand-drawn maps and agreed-upon lines. This one is fuzzier, but I don't want us to get caught up in if it's currently an uncontested line. I don't feel like that's our role. Our role is the wetland line, and given the distance to the wetland line and the vegetative state in between, that perpendicular line to the wetland, like that's where my concern is. And I think in the past we've done driveways and sheds and other what are considered relatively de minimis activities, certainly within 30 feet, 25 feet. and that it's impervious. So I don't know, that my focus is more on the wetland impact than the other stuff.
Commissioner Begemon, so in following up on what you said, to a certain extent, it matters to the homeowners where the property line is, but to us, in terms of what we are trying to approve or, look at for protection of inland wetlands, it really doesn't matter where that line is. What matters is what he's done and how far away it is from the wetlands, what kind of surface he put down, et cetera. So I am leaning towards, I think, not making a motion necessarily. Somebody else can put all those little details in, but that I would approve a motion to, approve this. That's where I am.
So from the property line standpoint, the main way that falls into the agency's jurisdiction is making sure that they have authorization from the property owners. And I think my comment earlier was to the point that it appears to be uncontested that the property line is where the tree line is, not so much adverse possession. And I think that's kind of blends into why I think it might be important for the commission to consider that should they decide to issue a permit. So that way it's clear to the property owner at 80 Greenfield Ave that the commission is not codifying that that's where the line is. You understand that it's a little bit of a gray area, but this is the information that's been provided to you. And per state statute, the commission can reassess a permit should information be presented that the information in an application was incorrect. So that's the comment I was trying to get at earlier.
Yeah, to the extent that, 6 months from now, somehow it's determined that that property line is not correct. How does that change basically our responsibility here for the wetland? The change in the property line wouldn't do anything for the wetland, correct?
I mean, the only thing that would really potentially, should the driveway end up being on 80 Greenfield, then theoretically the portion of the driveway on 80 Greenfield wouldn't have a wetland permit. So they would need to submit a permit for that activity. And theoretically, if you're the owner of 80 Greenfield, you're probably not going to sign off authorization. So, I mean, that really kind of inserts the commission a bit into what is a private dispute. Yeah. And that's typically how these driveway things would happen, because a lot of times people expand their driveways and, local agencies don't even necessarily know because we don't have a microscope on everyone's driveway. So.
Okay.
Would anyone object to a motion approving the application with the condition, with some language regarding a condition that given the property lines that are before the commission for granting the permit, but should those property lines be incorrect, the commission reserves the right to withdraw the permit approval, something like that.
This is Commissioner Baskin. Yeah, that would work, but I also think we would need to put a condition in pretty clear that the driveway needs to remain in its current state.
Yeah, I think, yes, I think the surface, that's an important component. That it's pervious is a factor certainly for consideration.
Jamie Frederick, and the Wetland Agent. I did prepare a staff report. I've jumped down to the possible conditions for consideration, which include the surface of the driveway shall not be changed without review by the agency to determine whether additional stormwater management is necessary. Vegetation at end of driveway shall be left in natural state. No vegetation removal shall occur without the review of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency. And this application was reviewed with the understanding that all proposed activity is on 76 Greenfield.
Well, and Jamie, this is Commissioner Voda, a clarification question. So the surface of the driveway should not be changed without review of the agent to determine about stormwater. I'm wondering if it's even that, or the surface of the driveway shall not be changed without review of the agency.
Sure.
Period. Because at that point, they either need to come in for another permit or a permit modification. I'm not sure which, but I would think that would be a different permit.
Commissioner Bassman, I guess on number 2, Jamie, is it clear when we say the end of the driveway that we're only looking at the line there next to the number 45 on the drawing? Or do we mean that basically at all, wherever the driveway is, whatever abuts it shall be left in the natural state?
Jamie Frederick, in the wetland agent. I was just trying to address the vegetation at the end of the driveway. I can't speak to whether or not it's clear.
What direction is it? What side is that? I didn't see arrows on the map.
So I would consider the front of the driveway is where it ties into the road, and this is what I would consider the end. But we could say the north end of the driveway, because this is north.
But we don't want anything changed between 76 and 80, do we?
Well, honestly, this vegetation at some point is going to likely need management. And the type of trees that are planted there have a relatively short lifespan. I wouldn't be surprised they have to be replaced. Commission didn't get involved in the planting of them. I don't know. I mean, to me, it seems like it's a screening planting more than anything, and that's.
And this is Commissioner Boda, and I think you're talking about de minimis activity. Like, let's say that the property owner on 76 wanted to change some plantings there. If that came to us as something new, that would be a de minimis activity that would go for agent approval, because we're not looking at impact, direct or indirect, to the wetlands. The biggest concern would be the addition of impervious surface to the driveway and or additional clearing at the rear of the driveway. And I would also want to add potentially that the property owner should add some, what do we have, like those end of disturbance markers. I can't remember the name. We've used them in the past. Like, they're just nice things. It's like, don't go past this. Don't cut anything past this point. Does anybody have a word for me?
I believe we have conservation signs in the inland wetland office. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, just some sort of not. And when I don't mean a stake like a Home Depot don't plow here stake, but just something denoting that no additional disturbance should happen beyond that point, the rear of the driveway. Markers. That's the word I was looking for. This is Commissioner Voda. Are we okay with a motion?
Yeah. I think.
Jamie, can you pull the possible conditions back up? Okay. I will make a motion that we approve Inland Wetland 230102 76 Greenfield Ave, with the understanding that the property lines before us are correct, with the additional conditions that the surface of the driveway shall not be changed without agency approval. That the vegetation at the end of the driveway, the rear of the driveway, is left in its natural state. No vegetation removal shall occur without review of the Wetland and Watercourse Agency. Additionally, that markers should be placed at the end of the rear of the driveway to indicate that no additional vegetation should be removed. And this application was reviewed with the understanding that all proposed activity is on 76 Greenfield Avenue, as well as all of our standard conditions that are denoted on the staff report dated 3/6/23.
I think it's 3/9/23.
Oh,
It's on the page. It says the staff report says 3/6.
for the meeting 3/9.
Oh,
Oh, I see. No, I see. No, right. You're right. So it's prepared for 3/9, revised on 3/6/23.
Katie Blanchett, Inland Wetland Associate. Just for clarity, Commissioner Boda, I would like if you could repeat the added conditions.
So adding to condition number 2, that markers be placed at the rear of the driveway, the northern end, to indicate that it is to be left in its natural state. And do you want me to do all of them again?
Okay, I'll read back to you what I have.
Okay.
Commissioner Boda makes a motion to approve the application with the understanding that the property lines before us are correct, with the additional condition that the surface of the driveway not be changed unless reviewed by the agency. Markers should be placed at the rear of the driveway to indicate no further clearing. And then there was something about plantings.
Vegetation at the end of the driveway shall be left in its natural state. No vegetation shall be removed without agency approval. The application was reviewed with the understanding that all proposed activity is on 76 Greenfield Ave, as well as our standard conditions on the staff report and general provision in the issuance of all permits also on the staff report. Revised 3/6/23.
Got it. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
with that all-encompassing motion, is there a second?
This is Commissioner Steinberg. I'll second that motion.
This is Commissioner Bassman. I just had one point of clarification now that the motion has been seconded. I assume based on our discussion, which by the way, I think was quite helpful, we are not doing anything to indicate that if the property lines turn out to be different, that the agency could take action. I'm assuming based on Commissioner Boda's comment that essentially it wouldn't do anything regarding the wetlands, and
right.
Therefore any discussion between driveway and the boundaries and all that would be a civil matter, not something for the commission. Is that correct in terms of my understanding?
Well, and also if that information was incorrect, it could potentially null and void the permit.
But
that's my understanding.
We don't have to state that, correct?
No, we stated it within the conditions, saying that the information in the permit is based on what was presented, and that all of these are happening on 76 Greenfield.
Thank you. Okay, let's see, roll call vote. Commissioner Finaro.
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Begeman.
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Steinberg,
Commissioner Steinberg, aye.
Commissioner Papantonis,
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Meinson,
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
Commissioner Boda,
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Okay. Next up, Inland Wetland 230202, 9 and 33 Elm Street, the modification to the site plan at 9 Elm Street to 233. Jamie, do you have anything new on this?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I did send the applicant some questions/comments. I did receive some responses. I prepared a staff report, and the applicant and their project engineer, I believe, are both present this evening. This was for receipt, I believe, at the last meeting. It was received just before the meeting, so there really wasn't any review or discussion at the last meeting. Let's see.
I can go over it if you'd like.
Do you want me to screen share it, or do you want to screen share it?
I have it here, so I can screen share it. Anyway, Jim Preddy, Criscolo Engineering, 420 East Main Street here in Branford. I believe Kevin is also on here, but I believe he's traveling, so it may be hard for him to connect. So I will share the screen. Let's see. Hopefully you can all see that. This is the property at 9 Elm Street that came in for an application a while back. What we're talking about now is this narrow strip here is called 33 Elm Street. Kevin has since that approval has purchased this property. We've amended it to the property, combined it, and actually we got a zone change. So the property is all one zone now, because this little strip was an R zone. It is no longer. So what was approved before basically ended at this retaining wall here. This parking lot was part of the original approval, this drainage outlet, the plantings and the conservation mix, that was all part of it. But once this became part of it, there was some clearing that Kevin had done initially for some down trees that happened in this area last year during one of the windy storms. And then the vegetation in there was some really nasty briars and all kinds of stuff that you could barely see through, let alone walk through. So they kind of cleared that, and I think which is what drew Jamie's attention. But we had already was kind of behind the scenes. We're planning on coming back with another plan to incorporate this in. Kevin wanted to be able to keep this area kind of I'll say sightly and manicured and cleaned up. And there was sort of a bowl there. So what he wants to do is do another retaining wall. This would only be quote unquote a landscaping wall. I think at its highest point, it's only 3 feet. And plant a buffer behind it for the neighbor over here, and then maintain this as lawn, extending that conservation mix out beyond it. So that would kind of take over, a no-mow seed mix. So that would kind of take back over in this area down here. One of the questions Jamie had asked was about the silt fence. We had initially staked out the silt fence for the original approval, and Kevin had then gone in and put the other silt fence that you see on here now. So the question was kind of hard to explain. I think Kevin said, "Yeah, what was on the plan is there now." Well, really, what's on the site now is both. It's this. I overlaid the original one on this, and then this is the one that we're doing now. So they're actually both out there now. So I don't think there's any erosion or sedimentation or anything going on now. I think it's pretty stable, but this work stopped until we came in here to do this. One of the other things that Jamie mentioned, some questions that she sent out, she asked if we could maybe enhance the area, the edge of the clearing line down here with some plantings, and I showed some in here, and I would take some just suggestions. I had thought maybe something like serviceberry or something that more like larger bushes, small trees kind of thing, because this would be difficult to get down here in the event of larger trees falling over. Basically, I did get the staff report yesterday, and I spoke to Kevin today, and he's amenable to pretty much everything in there. The inspections and the bond for the ENS. I think we'd be laying out this, as a surveyor, we'd be laying out the walls and the drainage. And I think the rest of it was just standard conditions. So again, I wasn't at the last meeting. Kevin was. I think you kind of covered most of this then, but if there's any other questions, I can certainly answer. Let me go back. This was the plan I think that he came in with. Didn't show that second line.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. I don't think we had a presentation at the last meeting due to the timing.
I see.
So it looks like you have a new plan, but it looks like basically the only changes are the addition of the plantings along the rear disturbance limits of activity. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, and I fixed the zoning table too.
This is Commissioner.
If you look over here.
Mr. Preddy, any change in stormwater management given the new retaining wall and et cetera?
No, I mean, that area is going to be either lawn or planting, so there's no increase in impervious surface. We didn't make the parking lot any bigger. I mean, none of that's changed. So I think the stormwater has all stayed the same. The limits of disturbance in the back here really only changed in this area. Again, we were coming down here before, and that's there. That's why I showed both silt fence lines, just so you can see the difference. Really, the difference grew toward the neighbor.
As a follow-up question to that new retaining wall, as Commissioner Basserman, to the, I don't know, was it east or whatever, to the right on the plan, is the slope kind of the same on the other side of that retaining wall, or does it tend to go up?
You mean over on this side?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll be matching the grades at the bottom of the wall. We'll match at the property line. Well, we're in from, about 1.5 feet from the property line, but behind the wall, we're actually flattening it out. It's actually the slope's getting less. That's part of the reason for the wall. So there'll actually be, in the future, less potential for an erosion issue there.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Boda, was there any planting bonds on the original permit?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, there were no bonds on the original permit at all.
How many plantings are you proposing?
Well,
can you get into the specifics with the planting plan?
So
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, sorry, just when you're doing that, can you also touch base on the eastern hemlocks and regarding the proximity to the retaining wall and the integrity of the retaining wall?
Yeah.
And maybe just make that section, sorry, this is Commissioner Boda, just make that section bigger. I don't need to see the whole plan anymore, just the plantings.
Let me see if I can get over. Hold on, I can't get to my. So the original plan had some building plantings on the side here and some street trees. We were planting some arborvitaes at the end of the aisle here because, this is where, not that it matters for the railroad, but this is where the headlights come. So we were kind of blocking this detention area. What we've added, and I had suggested some hemlocks here. Jamie had expressed a concern about the root system behind the wall. We can very easily change those to arborvitae if that's okay. bigger arborvitaes, but the root balls for arborvitaes is fairly compact and wouldn't spread as much, and it would have a less chance for the wall being disturbed. This wall is only a couple of feet high, so I think the roots are, most trees would get probably deeper anyway over here. If it was on top of this wall, I'd be a little more concerned because at the very bottom we're like 7 feet in this corner on the higher wall. But and then in the back, again, we were open, as Kevin indicated, that he was open for suggestions back here. As far as, number and type, I have shown half a dozen, and my thought was something like the larger serviceberry variety, but again, we would be open to something suggested. I don't think that there's any other, as far as the wildlife in the area, I don't know that there's any other, berry type trees there, so it might be a benefit.
I'll just comment real quick. I don't think we have the site plan, so if you can send me a digital copy of it after,
Yeah, well, the site plan you have is pretty much the same. Again, all I added was the second, the original silt fence line for this discussion and these plants for this discussion. Commissioner Boda, did I answer your questions? I'm not sure.
You did. Thank you.
Okay.
And it's Commissioner Boda. Jamie, is there a reason why, because this is it's a modification to an existing plan, we're not looking at an increase in erosion, we're not looking at an increase in stormwater? Is there a reason why we wouldn't do this as an agent approval? Also, given that it's adding plantings.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. You could, particularly if you wanted additional information on the plantings, but it is actionable tonight.
Wow.
So,
that would be a reason.
And the original permit was done by the commission. The proximity of the activity does get a little bit closer to the wetland. It is pretty close. But I would say because it is actionable, I do have a staff report if you feel comfortable.
This is Commissioner Boda. I didn't see a staff report in the Dropbox for this.
Yeah, I did send it out via email yesterday, and I was just looking for it in the Dropbox, and I did not get it in the Dropbox apparently. So I can screen share it. I did send it out to the applicant, and I sent it to you guys. Usually I throw them in the Dropbox, but it must have slipped through the cracks.
I see it. Thank you. But maybe screen share it too.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm working from home. If I was in the office, I would have already had it on the screen for you.
All right.
That is the beauty of Zoom meetings, is we can all be home, or most of us anyway.
All right. So this is basically saying we've received everything. I did also ask the applicant about material, given the grading changes in the current stockpile. They indicated they might need to bring a little bit more material on site, but just trying to see if there's anything else we haven't touched base on. Already touched base on the additional plantings, the eastern hemlocks. I had recommended that the commission consider having them seek information from the wetland scientist and or project engineer regarding additional plantings and whether root interference would likely be a concern relative to the retaining wall. My main concern was the retaining wall. Even though it's not a tall retaining wall, it would, be a shame to have a plan that would have a potential issue there.
Jim Preddy again. Like I said, the root ball for an arborvitae stays fairly compact, so we can switch it to that. That was more about creating some shade and privacy for the neighbors.
Yeah, and that's a planning and zoning requirement as well, right? That you have some.
Yeah, they want. Yeah, agreed.
Mr. Preddy, just a quick question. I'm curious. This is Commissioner Boda. I'm curious about your initial inclusion of hemlocks in that with the woolly adelgid I'm just curious if there is some other species that is woolly adelgid resistant, or that wasn't like why you would include them given the past.
I was thinking of something, and on the evergreen side that was not arborvitae. Truthfully, I was trying to get something that would be possibly a little bit taller and not be so susceptible to deer eating them at just the right height. But there are, my understanding is, and I haven't seen them, but I guess you don't notice when the deer aren't eating them. But some of the there are some of the arborvitae varieties that they don't eat. So we could play with that a little bit.
Jamie Frederick, inland wetland agent. So in addition to the language that I have on here, kind of given the conversation that's been ongoing, if the commission is looking to act on this evening, then I think maybe having a condition that addresses, inland wetland agent to approve final planting plan species, or something like that, regarding the proposal of the additional plantings in the rear, and then also the potential of swapping out the hemlock for an alternative evergreen screening plant. Does the commission want me to read through the other conditions real quick that were drafted as considerations? I'm not hearing anyone, and I can't see anyone. Okay, so initial erosion control inspection, which I've kind of already done, but always a good idea once they start back up to make sure they're being maintained. Stormwater drainage structure inspection, that was on the first one. Pre-planting meeting, planting inspection based on the additional plantings, and final inspection. Typical. Second one is typical language regarding an as-built and certification that the project was done as completed. Condition number 3 is kind of standard language that we have should the commission want a bond and or monitoring for any of the plantings. So I put that in there as a placeholder. I had not seen the additional 6 plantings in the rear, but thought that should that be added, it might be a condition the commission wants. And then the other one is a bond shall be submitted regarding maintenance of erosion controls. Was not required the first time around. I don't know if the commission feels it's required this time around. The owner has been responsive whenever I've asked them to make repairs, but the activity is also very close to the wetland. So,
just for clarification, Commissioner Basserman, are these 2 separate bonds?
We itemize the bond, and it's generally submitted as one bond, but it could be 2 separate bonds. We itemize it, and so it would be, X amount for erosion control, X amount for planting, X amount for monitoring, should the commission require monitoring.
Yeah.
I put both in because I wasn't sure if it would be one or the other. And they're in italics because I was a little bit less sure if the commission, the other 2, I would strongly encourage the commission. These ones I think are more dependent upon what the commission deems is necessary or appropriate.
The reason I raised the question is certainly the erosion control timing is different than the plantings timing. So yes. It is one bond, but it's itemized so that when a certain portion of the bond has been completed, that if a request comes in for return, we can act on that as opposed to everything on one bond.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Is your concern with the planting bond that the fact that it's only the 6 additional trees or shrubs, but I mean, there's other plantings on the plan that we want survivability for as well, correct?
Yeah, so I mean, it's open-ended and it's what the commission thinks is necessary. Just because there's plantings, you don't have to require a bond and or monitoring. And while those additional plantings along the wetland area jump out as the obvious choice, should you require any sort of bond or monitoring, it doesn't mean that you can't deem that other plantings are beneficial to the wetland and include those plantings as well. But generally, the commission does identify the plantings for which the bond is for, so that way it's clear when we're requesting the itemization, what we're requesting it for, that the applicant or permit holder knows what they need to submit it for, what they need to request back. I think particularly
plantings are there? How many plantings are there?
Plantings total?
Yeah.
Along the wetlands, Peter, or the whole site?
The whole thing. I mean, are we talking 25? Are we talking?
So it would be, yeah, all of those 25, 20, 37, 45, and plus the 6 that we're adding. So
right.
Like 50.
Isn't it, Commissioner Bassman, isn't it typical, Jamie, when we have that number of plantings that we have a bond?
Jamie Frederick in the wetland agent. I think it has less to do with the number of plantings and more to do with the location and proximity and function. So I think 6 of 8 of the, I don't know, there's street trees which are on the front of the site in between Elm Street and the building and the parking area. I'm not sure that it's necessary for the Inland Wetland Commission to bond those, especially knowing that they're planning and zoning requirement, and that planning and zoning typically would potentially require a bond for those. I'm actually not sure if they're street trees or if they're just front landscaping, but
yeah, no, they're street trees. So, and zoning is going to require them, and to that end, the plantings along the building, they were. We started an application with planning and zoning in this a while back, and so these are some of the things that came out of that. The plantings along the building are going to be required by zoning, and quite frankly, the plantings along the property line, the hemlocks changed to arborvitaes, are part of the landscaping requirement that the zoning requires. So really, the only ones that are not are the arborvitae along the drainage basin and the 6 service berry we're going to add along wetlands. Those are the only ones that zoning is really not going to care about.
Yeah. This is Commissioner Boda's question. So when zoning requires those, do they also require a bond? Do you end up is it possible to end up in a double bond situation over the same plants?
it is possible for that to happen. And in the last regulation revision that the Inland Wetland Commission did, we did add some language to try and address that. So that way, if there's a bond that overlaps for the same items from inland wetlands and planning and zoning, it could theoretically, through itemization, that overlap could be accounted for in the bond amount. Haven't had that actually become a situation yet, but we did try to address it to make sure, because sometimes planning and zoning wants an erosion control bond and inland wetlands wants an erosion control bond as well. And it's valid for both commissions to want it for different reasons, but the location of that may overlap. But that doesn't mean that they have to fix the same section of silt fence twice. So you don't need twice the amount of money. So that's what the intent of that language was. But I think when it comes to plantings, considering, okay, is this planting to the benefit of the wetland, or is this a planning and zoning foundation planting, street planting, is kind of worth the commission considering, rather than just saying, well, plantings are good for the wetlands, so let's bond all of them. So to that end, I would say the 6 additional plantings that they are amenable to, and then potentially the arborvitae along the stormwater system would be the ones for the commission to consider bonding for. And then possibly also the conservation seed mix. That's also a typical.
Agreed.
And the service berry?
That was my suggestion, unless you have an alternate.
No, the service berry is good. This is Commissioner Boda. I would certainly, plantings are always good. Additional plantings are good. I do think that ensuring that there's a planting bond and the reporting, the 85% survivability, if that wasn't in the first permit, I don't know how we missed it. That's pretty standard for us to require that. Maybe it was an 11 o'clock approval. I don't know. Right? I don't. Yeah. So, Jamie, can you go back to the conditions for approval?
It's almost 11 now, I think.
Don't say that. How are other folks feeling about moving forward with this application with the addition of the planting bond and the 85% survivability or survival rate, the monitoring for 5 years for that?
Sounding good.
That looks good. I guess how would we complete the area where the blanks are?
So it's this is Commissioner Boda. It's a 6 additional plantings. The arborvitae along the basin, as well as the proposed service berry. Do you want
conservation mix?
Oh, and the conservation mix. Do you want the plan sheet? What?
If we could get the latest revision date on the plans, especially since we don't have a physical copy of it at this point in time. And then I would also say 2 copies of the latest plan set or something as another condition of approval shall be submitted.
That'll be 3-7.
3-7, Mr. Purdy?
The revision date will be 3-7.
Oh, okay.
And Jamie, what did you say? 2 additional, wait, what?
2 paper copies of the final plan set.
Yeah.
Because the one that was shown by Mr. Purdy this evening, we do not have in our file.
This is going to be messy.
So I will clarify the service berry and the change to on the plantings when I give you your copies.
That seems appropriate.
Do we need to bond for the erosion controls even though they're already in?
For the what?
The erosion controls, that's already in. It's there.
It would be for the continued maintenance if the commission that's necessary.
Okay. Good point.
This is Commissioner Begman. We have later a cease and correct on these same properties. Do we have to? Oh, that's what we're taking care of partly today, right now? We're going to get to that later?
That's a later item, yeah. So
I know it's later.
Reviewing the application, and then later you'll review the violation to see if it's satisfied or.
Okay.
Okay. I can try to make a motion. I have a feeling it's going to be a little messy. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve inland wetland 230202, 9 and 33 Elm Street, the modification to site plan at 9 to include 33 Elm Street, including the some of the conditions for consideration, revision date 3/8/23. Condition 1, contact Wetlands Department to request inspection site meeting, A through E inclusive. Number 2, the licensed surveyor shall identify in the field the layout of the site components, inclusive of everything in 2, and that the plantings, including the 6 additional plantings that were added, the arborvitae along the basin, the serviceberry, and the conservation mix shall be monitored and reports submitted by the end of the initial growing season and annually thereafter for 5 years, documenting at least an 85% survival rate, and that a bond shall be submitted to the agency for approval, inclusive of everything in 3A and 3B, that a bond shall be submitted to cover the maintenance of the erosion controls, inclusive of 4, that this approval is based on site map revision date of 3/7/23, that 2 paper copies of the final plan set be given to the wetland agency, as well as our standard conditions and the general provision in the issuance of all permits per section 11.11.
Who said that would be messy?
and that the wetland agent, that might have already been in there, but that the final planting plan be submitted to the wetland agent for final approval. That might have been in there, but just in case it's in the notes.
I'd like to second that motion. This is Commissioner Finaro.
Pretty complete. Does anybody have any suggestions, changes, amendments to that motion that was made by Commissioner Boda, seconded by Commissioner
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. Just one question. So condition number 3 requires wetland scientists prove any changes to the planting plan. I don't think it specifies who has to do the monitoring specifically. Does that need to be a wetland scientist or is it another?
I will amend the motion to clarify that the person doing the plant monitoring should be a wetland scientist or other such qualified professional, qualified in plantings, wetland plantings.
This is Commissioner Finaro. I'd like to second that amendment.
ready to vote? Assuming no further questions. Commissioner Steinberg.
Commissioner Steinberg, aye.
Commissioner Meinson.
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
Commissioner Papantonis.
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Begerman.
Commissioner Begemon, aye.
Commissioner Finaro.
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Boda.
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Okay.
Thank you. Jamie, does this mean because this was approved, does that cover the cease and correct order?
That will be determined shortly.
Oh.
I mean,
Not so fast.
you can wait for one thing in between.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Let's see, we're under enforcement. Why don't we, if anybody has an objection, let me know, but why don't we deal with CC 22-1101, 9 and 33 Elm Street first?
Yeah.
Commissioner Papantonis, I'm fine with that.
CC 22-1101, 9 and 33 Elm Street, non-compliance with permit inland wetland 200402, including clearing and grading beyond approved limits of disturbance onto 33 Elm. This was a just cause hearing that was continued from December 8th of 22. I don't think we're tabling this right now. We had an application.
Application has been reviewed.
Right. Does that sufficiently clear this cease and correct 22-1101?
So that's for the commission to determine. A motion should be made. From an inland wetland staff standpoint, my main concerns were making sure everything was stabilized out there and that they had approval for the increase in area of activity. So that they now have that approval. And the last time I was out, I was satisfied with the erosion controls. So I would not be opposed should the commission determine to lift the order.
Peter, you're muted.
Does any commissioner feel that 22-1101 cease and correct be left in place or modified as opposed to with an understanding that the application that was approved clears this 22-1101? Do we need the roll call vote on this one, or is general consensus okay?
Should be a motion and a roll call vote.
Roll, I can hear it already. Commissioner Boda.
Was there a motion?
Oh, I guess I got to make a motion then, huh? Make the motion that for 22-1101, 9 and 33 Elm Street, which was in non-compliance with permit 200402, that it be lifted, given the fact that an application was approved that satisfied all the conditions laid out for that cease and correct.
Commissioner Papantonis, I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Okay, Commissioner Papantonis?
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Boda?
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Finaro?
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Meinson?
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
Commissioner Steinberg?
Commissioner Steinberg, aye.
Commissioner Begerman?
Commissioner Begemon, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go back to A 22, cease and correct 220601, and the second notice of violation for 20 Huntington Drive, removal of trees and placement of debris. I assume this note here, progress on restoration plan, is a note that pertains to information you received, Jamie?
Jamie Frederick, in the Wetland Agent. So I did receive an email from the property owner this evening, shortly before the meeting. I've honestly not had a chance to read it. However, they are also present this evening. So again, I have not read the email fully, but It is accompanied by photos of the signs on wooden posts. They're not typical of what we would see, but it's certainly an improvement over the previous installation. So I can screen share those photos, and then I don't know if the property owner wants to unmute and provide the commission with an update on kind of where those action points are.
Sure thing. Yeah, first and foremost, I apologize if you guys hear background noise. I'm just in the hospital, but so that's essentially what I stated in the email was, unfortunately, due to my health, I've been in and out. As I've been kind of communicating over these last couple of times. So with the signs, those were installed. You know, we had those after the last time we talked. I was able to get those done last month. I just, unfortunately, being in and out of the hospital, I wasn't able to get the photos to you guys. But as far as the rest, I reached out initially to the Levesque Geometrics or whatever they're called. They're based out of Massachusetts. They're the ones who did the initial survey of the property. And so I hired them. I paid them $850. Shortly after, that was like back in October when we had initially spoke. Shortly after that, that's when I got sick. So unfortunately, I was not able to follow up with them right away. When I got out, I did follow up with them back in December. I had continued to follow up with them, or actually had my wife follow up with them. And unfortunately, they never got back to me. So at this point, now that I'm going to be leaving here and kind of a little more stable, I'm going to be locating a local company and just having them do the survey. I was trying to go with the original because since they already knew the property, they've already been out, a few times. So I was just trying to keep with them. But in the end of the day, they're just not responding, and they're also out of state. So it's not like I can just go to their office. So I'm going to hire a local company this coming week. I'll get that contracted, and I can send you the contract. And then as far as the planting plan, I'll be honest, I have not had a chance to get to that yet. I did a couple of the times that I was out of here. I was able to meet with a couple of people in regards to the debris removal. Two companies I met with, they indicated to me that it would be a very difficult process only because a lot of what's back there is, it's larger items, and they would have to bring that all the way to the top of the property, which is uphill. And, obviously we can't place a dumpster anywhere back there because the abutting property is the neighbor. So I can't really trespass on their land. And without heavy machinery or, just machinery, they were saying it would be very difficult to move it to the top of the land. And, it's doable. They said it would take a lot of time. And obviously because of that time, the cost literally probably quadruple, if not more, which, I haven't even delved further into that to see what the total estimate would be, because the first thing they asked me was to see if there's any way that the debris or, because it's tree stumps, et cetera, if there's any way to have that moved to another portion of my property, because obviously the property back there is pretty large, somewhere closer, but, out of the range of, obviously getting it out of where you guys want to get it out of, but making it a little more accessible so that they can walk it over by hand. That's one of the things they had asked me. I left off with that with them at that. And obviously I knew I was going to try to make it to this meeting. So I figured I'd just ask at the commission meeting. Other than that, like I say, on the planting plan, I'll be honest, I have not had a chance to do that. I am, as I said, going to be out of here this weekend again. And so this coming week, my plans are to reach out to several people to try to get them contracted to do, to issue me a planting plan now that we're coming closer to the, the spring when we're able to do that. As you guys had said, I forget what it was stipulated, but by May or whatever it is. So I will be contracting them as well this week. And let me see. Other than that, the only other thing that I had indicated in the email was my contractor had indicated to me that I guess during a couple of these last storms, these windy storms, 2 trees actually fell against my house. As I stated to you guys, a lot of those trees out there were very rotted. And so these trees, I guess there was already one that was kind of leaning up against my house. I had indicated that to you, I think, and I'd send it in a photo not, a while ago. But that one, that tree finally hit my house. I had it hit in 2 places, so I had to repair those. But obviously the tree had to come down because it was already, it was already in a dangerous position. And then there was one that fell into the neighbor's yard as well. And they were, I was trying to, but not trying to hold out, but whatever. I was trying to, but they literally were contacting me daily, like upset. One of them actually came over, and while my guy was over there assessing the situation, actually tried to fight him, because it was there for about a week. So I to avoid problems over there, I had that chopped up. We haven't, I have to have it, we have a dumpster there, so I have to have it dumped. But other than that, as I said, everything's still the same. I got the silt felt fences up, the signs have gone up. And again, I'm going to be having I'm going to locate a local survey company to put those wetland delineations on the survey. And as I said, and also now that we're already kind of coming closer to the time for planting, I'm going to have hire them to be able to give me do the planting plan, et cetera. But yeah, my plans are this coming week, once I get out of here, is to move on those and try to start getting that progress done. But again, I wanted to figure out the situation with the debris, just because $20,000 to remove debris. I'll be honest, I'm paying medical bills, I'm paying a bunch of other stuff. So I don't know if I'm able to even, get that done by hand all the way to the top of the hill. So, that was a couple of the things the contractors that were looking at it had explained to me. Look, see if this is doable, or what other options we may have, if any. And, to just try to see if I can, I want to resolve everything. Obviously I wish I had unlimited amounts of money. But at the same time, I also have to have the house done because it's an eyesore for the neighborhood. So, I've been getting a lot of kickback from the neighbors, et cetera, try to explain to a few of them, my health conditions and what's been going on. But, obviously I understand people want to have, things done so their property values don't diminish as well. So yeah, just trying to balance all these factors. Obviously I did not anticipate, the medical, I didn't anticipate that portion of it. My goal and my intentions, obviously, when as we spoke in October, were to fully move forward on this, get everybody out there, do everything I had to do. But, unfortunately, the situation happened. So I'm trying to work with it and do the best I can. But again, I'm going to be moving on those other two things this week, but I just need to kind of find out also about the debris so I can move on that as well.
Okay. Commissioner Bassman, Jamie, did we have a date in May? Is it the May meeting that we were looking to review this? Was it we were looking to make a decision in May? What was the time frame that we were suggesting?
Let me see. So we were looking to have the debris removed from the wetland area no later than May 30th, or so that planting can occur no later than May 30th. So the debris would have to be removed and the plantings around the wetland area planted by May 30th. Is the time frame we were looking at.
And any danger right now with the wetlands?
Excuse me. There is quite a bit of woody debris in the wetland area, so I would say that the damage would be the fact that it would be
it could move,
impacting the vegetation growth and establishment in that area. And the longer that it's there, the more it's going to impact the seed bank and, whatever, the vegetation and its ability to come back.
Is it worthwhile taking a look at the condition as it exists today and get an assessment, your assessment as to the removal of the debris and what's it gonna take to do that?
Quite honestly, I do not feel that I am qualified to determine that. I have no experience in tree removal. I can screen share real quick a copy of the sketch from the soils report so the commission can see. This is the wetland area. There's a water course, intermittent water course that goes through it. And the woody debris is piled up in this kind of finger area and over in this area as well. And it is quite steep to get up to the front part of the site, which is off the page. As far as another place to put the woody debris, I'm not sure there's another place at the bottom of the hill to do that.
So we have just to kind of, because the obviously this is just like a portion of the map, but my property extends so where you see that 73 on the corner, upper right-hand corner, the property extends much further than that. So that's why I was proposing somewhere in that area. I could bring it away from the wetlands, obviously, but it's a closer run and like a more level run than as opposed to that steep, as you can see from the lines. The topography, it's a steep incline to the front, but going to the side that way and down towards the bottom of my, I have a large portion of land down there, which I'm never really, going to be using. I'm using mainly at the top of the hill where you see the shed and above that. That's essentially where I'm going to be, that's where the pool is. That's where, the back of the house is. All that other area is kind of down a steep incline. So, that's why, anyways, that's kind of where they were talking about potentially even putting it out there. And then what we could do when it's out there is I could mulch it out. You know what I mean? Because I would imagine you don't want that mulch all along the ridge of the wetlands, because obviously the plantings are going there. So we need to keep that clear, for that. So again, they were talking about potentially moving it over to that area, and then from that area we can obviously bring the forget what you even call those things, the wood chipper, and chip down whatever's and kind of spread it down there, which it kind of already has a bunch of that anyways from, I guess, the previous owner. But again, just that was one of the things they suggested to me, and something like that I could pretty much move on pretty quickly, because he said that's easy to move because, again, you get enough hands out there, but it's just the moving to the top of the hill, it becomes very slow, because they have to chop up every piece.
Yeah, but we also have we got a couple months of time to the end of May, and this thing's been kicking around since June of 22. So I don't know. I guess what is the expectation where we'll be a month from now at our next meeting?
So again, assuming that I can move the debris over there, I can get that done within, like, literally, they can come out within this next week and start. Because again, the portion of this that I'm talking about is, I know we have the timing is the cost, because if they have to bring it up to the top of the hill, it now becomes a project that's 4 times greater. So the cost, I have to also obviously consider the cost, because I can't fund something that I can't fund. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm trying to say. They were trying to work with me and they were giving me suggestions. So they were like, look, if you have all this open area over here, if we can bring it over here, obviously not leave it in big piles like that, mulch it down, so it's nice and level, spread it out. That's essentially what they were suggesting to me, and obviously it's much more, it's literally a quarter of the cost to do it that way. And because it's a quarter of the cost, I'll front that cost right now to be able to do it. It's just that if it's 4 times the cost, it's going to obviously take me, I have to figure out funding for that. So that's the only thing I'm trying to work around or figure out,
Commissioner Bassman, Jamie, do we have any concern about bringing that material from its current location to, somewhere up the slope?
Jamie Frederick, in the wetland agent. I guess it's a little bit difficult to say without knowing what the vegetation is. I am trying to look in the files for a GIS map with some additional context of additional properties to make sure we're not just moving it adjacent to another wetland that's located on another property.
Right. Where I'm going with this is, to the extent that the homeowner contacts and gets agreement from somebody who's going to do the work, do you think it's appropriate to review that before the action takes place?
You mean review in the field where it is that they're proposing to place
or how they're planning to do it, to make sure that they're depositing it in an okay area, that the manner of removal and depositing is something that is not going to impact the wetland in any way, shape, or form. The activity needs to take place in order to clear this. The manner, obviously, sounds like there's some choices. And do you think it's appropriate to review those choices before work commences?
I think if the commission is open to the idea of putting the wood chip somewhere on the rear of the property, it would be appropriate to review the actual scope of that activity prior to it commencing. So
are there any identified wetlands in the top of the property?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So by the top of the property, you mean up by Huntington?
Yes.
There are no wetlands in the front of the property. The wetlands are located in the southwest corner of the property per the wetland delineation. And you can see the water course, the 2 pond areas on the neighboring property. And it sounds to me like they're talking about putting the wood chips somewhere over in this area.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Cause I feel like this is an older map because it doesn't have the pool. Yeah. So so where the pool is, I guess they must have regraded at some point that upper portion, because where the pool is, it kind of has a drop off. And right down at the bottom of the drop off, it's like a big open area, probably like 100 and, I don't even know. It's huge. Before it gets so it's a very far distance from the wetland. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Right in that area. Exactly. At the lower portion, once the lines start splitting out again, basically where it says grass area and that little marker, that's all flat. And that's why I'm saying they wanted to bring it from there, because it's like a straight shot over, and again, chip it out right there so that we can spread it and, if it's acceptable.
This is Commissioner Bascom. Does any commissioner feel that the intended area for the chipping to take place, does anybody have a concern about that area?
This is Commissioner Papantonis. Jamie, the slope of the property, if the chips were to go, is there a likelihood it's going to move into the wetlands from there?
So Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, if he's talking about putting it over here in this area that's identified as grass area, the way that the property is pitched, if anything, it would go southeast. If it was over here, there might be concern for it to go into the wetland area. I think my biggest concern is how much material there is to wood chip and making sure that it's not piled to a point where it's just going to be a huge...
No, so the amount of, the area, and this is that was one of my concerns too, because I don't want to have like heaps of, just things around the property, because obviously that's not good either. But from what I was indicated by the area is so large. I mean, obviously there is debris in that area, but it's not enough to, once it's spread out, obviously we wouldn't chip it out and just leave it in a big heap. It would be spread out amongst that whole bottom area so it could deteriorate back into the ground. So it would be leveled out. It wouldn't, and the max, might have increased that, if we did like I think they were saying a 25 by 50 area in that corner, it would maybe go up at, 2 inches or something like that with the debris. Maybe not even that, obviously, but, because it's not a lot of debris in that area. It's just, it's bigger debris, obviously, but again, once it's chipped out, it's much easier to work with and move around. And, but yeah, it wouldn't increase. It wouldn't be like in lumps or heaps or.
Are there any trees that you would have to remove to get access to bringing the wood chip over to this area?
No, that's the good thing. There's literally like a path that it's like a pathway essentially that comes right through there. There's a lot of trees where that sloping is, but where you see it flattens out towards the back of the property, there's like a path There was already like some trees already aligned along the back there, I guess from the previous owner, but right now, like there's a path in between those and the tree line. And so it's literally like a straight walk right over from there into that area. So it doesn't even affect any, it's not like we have to cut anything down to do that. It's clear to just walk it over. And then obviously we have the machine in that area to mulch it out.
Is Commissioner Bassman. So it seems like that's an acceptable location. I guess the only thing, Jamie, and I think you touched on it, would be before the activity to move that takes place, that you review the plan and are comfortable with the manner in which the removal of the debris and the depositing is something that you're okay with.
Jamie Frederick, inland wetland agent. So essentially, I guess, for clarification, are you saying, let me restart. Okay, so I guess I'm asking, based on this conversation, is the commission okay with the concept of removing the woody debris and chipping it and placing it in the opposite corner of the property? Just looking for a scale here. Looks like 1 inch equals 20 feet. I would say 40 to 60 feet at minimum away from the wetland area, not to exceed 2 to 3 inches in depth, kind of concept. And I'm screen sharing. I can't see your faces, so please make sure you verbally.
Yeah, I think that's the depositing area, and do we know what machinery is going to be used to extract from the area where it currently is to that deposit area? It seems to me there need to be some documented plan that talks about that movement.
So a written narrative from the contractor that will be doing the work regarding how they're going to do it.
Yeah.
And documenting on the survey where they're going to put it.
Correct. And your sign off, it says, go ahead and how long that's likely to take, and we'll go from there.
Do any commissioners feel differently?
No.
Again, no. Please verbally.
I do not feel differently.
Oh,
Commissioner Begamon, I'm good with that.
Commissioner Finaro, I'm good with that plan.
Okay.
Commissioner Papantonis, I'm okay with it, just as long as whatever equipment's going in there is not disturbing the wetland ground.
Yeah, the equipment should stay outside of the wetland area. And so that'll be one of the things to make sure the narrative addresses. Because there shouldn't be any need to have equipment in the wetland to pull it out. It's not that wide of an area, I don't think. And it might be appropriate to have a site visit with the contractor that'll be doing the work, just to make sure we're all viewing it and seeing it at the same time and on the same page about scope of work and what practically needs to happen to get it done versus making sure the wetland area is protected. So any other comments from commissioners, or are we good on this? Peter, I think you're muted.
I guess my comment would be that it would be very helpful, I think, to the extent that the contractor is under contract by our April meeting, his attendance at the meeting might be appropriate.
if they're able to start work. So does the commission want them to wait to start work until after the April meeting so you can have a conversation with the contractor, or are you satisfied if I have a meeting with the contractor and the property owner and have that written narrative that they can have the green light to start going?
Yeah, because if you guys will allow that out, I can literally have it done prior to the next meeting.
This is Commissioner Boda. I'm comfortable with Jamie, you're being able to meet with them and everybody getting on the same page so that ideally that work is done for the next meeting, so then we can get on to the rest.
Okay.
Good. So I'm okay.
Commissioner Papantonis, I would say with the proviso, though, Jamie, that if you're not comfortable that it doesn't get approved, right?
Fair enough. Appreciate that comment. But we'll see what we can do to get this moving along with confidence.
Hey, we have a plan.
All right. I'll be in touch with you, Bobby, tomorrow.
Okay, Jamie. Yeah, and like I say, before the next meeting, I should be able to have a planting plan as well. And then, hopefully if we can have, if you can get the approval, then we can have that done by then. And so you guys can approve or review the planting plan for the next meeting and survey, and then if it's approved, I can move on that in May as well for you, for you guys. So.
Sounds good. Thank you. Okay, 22-12-01, 21 Brainerd Road. Construction without a permit. We have a just cause hearing that we're continuing from 12/8. Do we have any new information on 21 Brainerd?
Jamie Frederick in the wetland agent. So I've been in touch with the property owner, and I've also been in touch with Waldo Associates, who the owner has hired to do a survey. They've confirmed that the property is on their schedule, and they should be able to be out there within 25 days of March 8th. So that would mean we should hopefully have a survey by April 1st or shortly thereafter. I see that there's a comment in my chat, hopefully soon. Okay, so moving on, I think it's best to just table and continue this to the April meeting.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, we don't have any time limits on just cause hearings, do we?
No, there's no time limit like a public hearing, and it's a lowercase just cause. The statute just provides that there shall be a hearing so that essentially the owner or violator can be heard.
Okay, thank you. 22-12-02, cease and correct, Valley Road. Removal of vegetation, ground disturbance within the wetland without a permit. Just cause hearing. 12/8/22, continuation, review of planting plan. We have a plan.
We do. So Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, this is the putting driving range property over kind of by Van Wilgens. There was some vegetation removal, predominantly invasive species, hard to say for sure what, since I didn't see it until after the fact, including along the water course, and there's a whole bunch of wetland soils and floodplain soils. So all the activity was in the wetland, but a majority of it is maintained as lawn. I'm going to stop talking so I can focus on opening the file. And I believe we do have a representative of the property owner present.
Yes. Linda Packard, property owner.
Just try and open all of the items that were received.
This was it used to be a swimming hole a very, very long time ago, right?
When I was a kid, yes.
Okay. All right, I'm thinking of the right place.
Good memory.
Good try.
I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll start off with the GIS map just to kind of put it back in context for everyone. So this is Van Wilgen's over here. You got the end of Tipping Drive, the access to the driving range facility, water course, and wetland area. And the vegetation removal goes along this property line here and down in here. You can see kind of that there's a change in conditions back here regarding how it's mowed, if you will, but it's all herbaceous growth. So I will jump over to the proposed planting plan. Got some plantings along the river and then also along the property line that was also kind of cleared. Lots of pretty typical good species for I would say the area and the conditions.
Does Commissioner Boda, is it a floodplain or is it a wetland?
Let's see. Okay. So in Connecticut, floodplain soils are wetland soils.
No, I understand. I'm thinking more about the plantings themselves, and there's definitely particular, if we're looking at trees that do better along floodplains versus a typical wetland type tree. So that's I guess that's where my wondering is, hydrologically, is it more typical of a wetland or is it more typical of a floodplain? And do we know from the soils?
So it is considered wetland soils, particularly so based on this old site plan, down along the river, it's identified as being inland wetland soils, with the floodplain soils being located further up. However, it is in the floodway, so it does flood and it does have standing floodwaters at certain points. So yes, flooding would be a concern relative to the plantings.
So I think I would just, if you go back to those plantings, I'm not totally up on my floodplain, but I think it was it's like silver maple, or I would just, I guess, want to make sure that those trees, I see a red maple in there, and
I have to admit, I didn't consider it from a floodplain standpoint. I basically was just looking at it from the wetland standpoint when I took a look at this.
But this is Commissioner Begeman. The recommendations came from whom?
This was provided by the property owner. I don't know if the property owner has additional information to provide on how they got to these plants.
Yeah, so I'll be real honest, I'm not the person that did the work on this. This property is owned by 5 siblings. And because I'm the one that sits on the Zoom call still whatever time, another family member was chartered with putting this plan together. You guys did provide some resources to us. And one of my family members actually knows someone in the landscaping industry and talked with them about it. And I would add that all of these trees that were used, and most of them aren't really trees, they're more shrub type or large bush type plants. They're all planted down in that area. So Van Wilgen's actually has some of these same plants that continue along the river on their property.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Boda. I don't mind the plants. My biggest concern was the survivability and the potential that you'd have to replace them if they were flooded in the way that floodplains do, and then you'd end up replacing them more than you would expect or want, versus if it was a floodplain tolerant tree / shrub. That's they're better adapted for that type of environment.
Unfortunately, I can't speak to how they selected these particular plants personally, because I was not involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
This is Commissioner Begemon. If none of us is an expert on these trees and whether they grow in water, some of them do, can have wet roots. Isn't there a way that we can approve the plan with the family getting it approved by some, that they can come back to Jamie and say, yes, so-and-so, this person who's an expert says that these are fine for this kind of topography?
This is Commissioner Papantonis. I think in the deep course I did not that long ago, I think red maple is an appropriate tree for floodplain, but I'm not an expert. I just did the deep course. But we usually put a 5-year condition on your viability. So as long as the plantings are appropriate and survive, then this should be good with me anyway.
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. At the last meeting, the last meeting where this was discussed, I did ask the commission to consider whether a wetland professional needed to do the planting plan. And it was indicated that you're kind of okay with a more informal approach to the planting plan. I think to kind of some of the points that have been made, as staff, I can take a high level look to just see if there's any red flags regarding any of these particular species, with the ultimate, responsibility of whether or not they're the appropriate plantings falling on the property owner, particularly, if we're requiring the 5 years of monitoring. And then maybe a condition that allows for the swapping out of species should the property owner want to have the planting plan, reviewed and confirmed by a professional, that can be brought to the inland wetland agent, and the agent can sign off on changing out the species with the overall concept spacing and planting types shown on the plan as being acceptable.
I would say that we do get standing water down there, but it normally doesn't last for a really long period of time. If we were to get some really bad flooding, it could sit there for a while. But our experience over the last 60 years has not been that. And again, most of this was just meadow. In fact, Jamie, I sent you a picture. Can we take a look at that?
Yes, bear with me. It's in a different program, so I'm not sure how easy it'll be to share. Are you seeing the picture?
No. I was able to find a photo that was taken, I think, in the early 90s that kind of gave, if you blow it up, you can kind of see better what this whole area looked like. And it was really just grass all the way to the river's edge. Yeah, so you can see a couple trees on this side, but for the most part, that really was just meadow. So in some ways, we would be putting more plants in here than have ever been there. Not on the right-hand side. There was some plantings over there, but along the river, yeah, there would be more plants than we've really ever had there.
Bassman, does anybody have issue with the suggestion by Commissioner Begeman that a plan be approved, the actual species identification would be reviewed by staff?
This is Commissioner Boda. I think that works. I'm not concerned about the plantings that she has is fine. Like I said, the thing that caught my attention was looking at the map again, just not wanting the plants to drown and need to be replaced if we're going to put in the reporting and 85% survivability over 5 years. So the plants are lovely. Just saw the river, and I could see, and the thought of it being a former swimming hole made me kind of just like visualize what that looked like, and I don't want your plants to drown.
Just for clarity, this is Commissioner Bassman. So Commissioner Boda, are you suggesting that what we have on the record regarding the species of plantings that you're okay with, or you want to have a different thought?
This is Commissioner Boda. I think the plantings are fine, and perhaps the property owners, we can put into an approval that any changes to the planting need to go to the agent for approval. And if the property owners want to take a second look, thinking about the possibility of flood zone shrubs, that if they wanted to bring an adjustment to Jamie, that they would be able to do that. I'm not interested in holding up the process. It just, like I said, it sort of.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that picture of the river, and I don't know. Maybe we were talking about it at 11:30 last time. I don't. Feeling slightly more awake.
No, it was earlier last time.
I see a message from Katie that she's having technical difficulties and might need to log out and back in. I am recording though, so if she needs to do that and she misses it, then a motion, then we'll have the recording that she can use, and I'll take notes.
She's going to log out and log back in, or?
Yeah, but I don't think we need to pause for that.
Right. Okay. Good. So in terms of this 22-1202, are we continuing this with modification? Are we approving the planting plan and closing the cease and correct? What's the commission feel that is appropriate at this point?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. Generally, if when the commission has a planting plan to resolve a violation like this, the commission leaves the cease and correct order in place until any associated monitoring is completed. So the first step would be confirming whether or not the planting plan is sufficient and satisfies the cease and correct order, determining if any monitoring is required. If so, what the duration of that monitoring is. Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? Is it 5 years, maybe reduced to 3 years if it's successful? And then generally, upon the successful completion of the monitoring, should it be required, which it normally is, would be when the commission would vote to lift the order. The order wouldn't progress any further because obviously the property owner is being compliant. It would just sit in the files. It's not filed on the land record, so it doesn't impact the land records at all.
Can you post the notice regarding the cease and correct?
All right. Told to stop any additional work, which they did.
Mm-hmm.
Contact the office, which they did.
Mm-hmm.
Install erosion controls. They did spread hay. Submit explanation of activities. They did that. And then the commission will review the violation and may require a restoration plan for all or some of the unpermitted activity. If a restoration plan is required, the commission will determine what information is required, what professionals may need to be involved in the planning process, and when the plan must be submitted to the commission.
So when I look at the this Commissioner Bassman, when I look at the 4 items, if this is going to continue, I mean, 1, 2, and 3 are at this point behind us. We have received a planting plan, which is the restoration plan. Do we need to suggest that items 1, 2, and 3, have been completed and the cease and correct is continued until item 4 is satisfied?
So, Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, the commission can uphold and modify, or overturn an order. So you could uphold and modify the order to identify that items 1 through 3 have been complied with. A plan has been supplied for number 4, and that, the order shall remain in place until said plantings have been implemented and monitored for X years. Should that be the route that you want to
go? This Commissioner Rasmussen, does any seated commissioner have issue with that approach?
This is Commissioner Steinberg. I'm fine with that approach.
Anybody else want to offer up a different plan or an amendment to that suggestion?
Commissioner Papantonis, I'm fine with that approach. And I'd suggest a 5-year monitoring to be reduced to 3 if viability is satisfactory.
I'd accept that modification, I guess, yeah. Okay, so as Commissioner Basserman, I propose that cease and correct 221202 Valley Road vegetation removal and ground disturbance without permit that the cease and correct be upheld and modified such that items 1, 2, and 3 on the order dated, what's the date of the order, Jamie?
December 6th.
December 6, 2022, that the items 1, 2, and 3 be lifted, and item 4 remain in place until plantings have been installed, period, and that a 3-year monitoring with 85% survivability be made part of the cease and correct.
Can you repeat that last part, Peter?
And that the planting should be subject to a 3-year monitoring plan, and that the cease and correct would remain in place for item number 4 until such time as the plantings had been implemented and the review period be completed with 85% survivability.
This is Commissioner Boda. I'll second. And I'd like to offer a friendly amendment that the monitoring plan be for 85% survivability for 5 years with the option of 3 years if we're seeing consistent reporting and success.
This Commissioner Papantonis, that's what I had meant to say, 5 years to be reduced to 3.
Yeah, I heard you. I got you.
I'd accept that modification to the motion. Any other comments on the motion? Just to be clear. All right, we'll take a vote. Commissioner Boda?
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Papantonis?
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Steinberg?
Commissioner Steinberg, aye.
Commissioner Meinson?
Commissioner Meinson, aye.
Commissioner Finaro?
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Beckman, aye.
Aye, and Commissioner Basserman, aye. Thank you. Okay. E, 76 Greenfield, we tabled.
The application has been reviewed. It is a notice of violation, so there's nothing really formal to close out. So I guess barring any comments, concerns, questions from commissioners, any issue with closing that file?
Nope.
Not for me, no.
Nope.
Given the fact that we had this Christian Bassman, given the fact that we had an application that we were okay with, in general consensus work here, or do we need a roll?
Yeah, given that it's a notice of violation and not a cease and correct order, general consensus is fine.
Great. Anybody have issue with closing this NOV?
Nope.
No.
Moving right along, now notice of violation for 92 Flaxville Road, removal of trees within 100-foot upland review area. Receipt of survey.
Right, so Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I believe we have the property owner here unless we went too late for them. And I do have a photo of the survey and a markup version of it with some concepts of future activities that they may want to may seek approval for. So essentially there was some tree removal after reaching out to the property owner, and I think Katie's had more direct correspondence with the property owner than me. So either Katie or the property owner, feel free to clarify or correct me. But there was some hazard trees, and one tree had actually fallen on the house. So they were doing some tree removal for the safety of the house. It appears that any ground disturbance was pretty minimal. It's clearly selective tree removal. It wasn't clear cutting. So I issued the notice of violation to start conversation, make sure there wasn't additional activity that was, going to occur prior to going through any appropriate approval process that may be required. Start off with a photo of the, let me just make sure I have everything queued up.
Jamie, I don't know if you saw, she submitted another plan today that had the additions that she wanted to put on.
Yeah, I added it to the Dropbox.
Great.
Okay. Is everyone seeing a copy of a survey? Maybe?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. All right. So existing house, new wetland delineation. I believe, again, Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, sounds like Richard Snarski did the wetland delineation, but he did not prepare a soils report. He would have to go back out to the field to do the soils report. So one of the things that the homeowner would like to ask is a soils report necessary, or is the wetland delineation sufficient? The tree removal for the most part was to the front of the house, I believe. And maybe a little bit to the south. I'm not sure if that activity occurred by the subject property owner or not. Does the commission have any? Let me just show real quick from the notice of violation. Sorry for the sideways view, but this is a picture after the activity had occurred. So does not appear there was a whole lot of ground disturbance. There's some wood chips on the ground, but if anything, that's helping to stabilize any ground disturbance that had occurred. It does not appear to be thickly piled. So certainly triggered the reach out and contact, but I don't know if there's additional concerns the commission has regarding the activity that has already occurred.
And
this is Commissioner Boda. Where's the, so the cutting occurred on the street side, the Flaxmill Road side of the?
That's correct.
And then the wetlands are, you go back to that last map.
To the rear.
The wetlands are in the back.
And then they're also to the south.
Yeah, I think on one of our older maps, there was wetlands indicated along this side of the driveway, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct. And Richard determined that there are no wetlands there anymore.
Yeah, so there are wetlands that continue to the south of the property. So this is Flaxmill Hollow. And this property up here, which is identified as Leo and Virginia Stan Lake, is the subject property. So I'll just toggle back real quick to the survey. And you can kind of see that this wetland area kind of matches up with what you're seeing here. And then if I jump over to my notice of violation, you can see what Katie was talking about with the old wetland delineation. My guess is that some of this got modified with the crossing for the development of Oak Hollow. But I don't know.
And this is Commissioner Boda again. What's our goal for tonight?
So from the violation standpoint, to see if the commission has any additional concerns or if they think the notice of violation has is satisfied by making sure the homeowner is aware of the fact that there's wetlands, that they need to have any activity within 100 feet of those wetlands reviewed by the commission, and then also to give the property owner an opportunity to quickly have kind of a preliminary discussion with the commission regarding projects they would like to do with the property. As a new property owner, there's some things they would like to do, and just give them some guidance so that they feel confident in whether or not moving forward with their proposals will have any additional information that's required, such as the wetland soils report, or if that's not necessary given the distance of the activity and the scope of the activity. And the fact that there's a wetland delineation.
So this is Commissioner Boda. So we could, if we're satisfied that the wetlands are not imperiled or impacted, we could lift the NOV this evening, and the homeowner wants to talk about a possible future application for something different on the property.
So
that is correct. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I had suggested to the homeowner, not really sure as to the extent of activity that had occurred versus the activity they want to have done. I figured it would be a good opportunity to make sure that they were aware of how wetland regulation would apply to future things they want to do in the property. Making sure that everything goes through the proper channels moving forward, kind of thing. So no additional activity has occurred since I contacted them, but there are some additions that they're looking to potentially put on the house, and I believe they're also looking to potentially install an in-ground pool in the future. So this is not an application, it's kind of a preliminary concept review. And given this, so when we reached out to them regarding the notice of violation, they indicated that they're already having a survey done and a wetland delineation done. So we had requested that information so the commission could see kind of, the layout of the property, where the wetland is. And then they also indicated they were interested in doing additional activity. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to get kind of everyone on the same page. And that's it.
So I'm sorry, this is Commissioner Boda. The property owner who's here, what's your name?
Hi, my name is Emerald Ventura.
Okay, so, and Ms. Ventura, the Jamie and or Katie has explained to you that anything within 100 feet of a wetland, that wetland line requires a permit from the commission. And additionally, if there's really steep slopes, they can extend beyond the 100 feet, but I don't know that would be an issue in this particular property.
Right. So they definitely explained all that to me. They've been awesome at that. But I did want to go over it to see before I spend the money in like a soil scientist spending more money on everything else, if it would get approved pretty much, or if I have a chance of it getting approved, so I can then spend the money instead of spending the money now and then getting it denied. So as Jamie is sharing, I see.
I think you muted yourself.
You muted. Jamie, can you make it bigger?
I can do that, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tiny. So we are trying to add another garage bay behind the garage. We're trying not to, unless we ask for a variance, we're trying not to touch that building line. I believe Katie or Jamie this morning spoke to me and told me that that may be an issue, but I can just ask for a variance on that. We're trying to go above the garage and make it an addition there. But if we can't do it on top of the garage where it passes the building line, we can go kind of horizontal and go on top of the new potential added bay. So I guess it's asking for your advice on that, whether we should just use the same footprint of the garage and make it like that, or, push it towards the new addition where it doesn't touch the property line.
So before commissioners chime in, I'll just try and I'll just say a couple of comments. So the commission doesn't get into, giving assistance on designing projects, but I think what they can do this evening, and would be helpful for you, would be give you guidance on information that would be needed for this kind of application, whether it's simply showing it on the survey, in a more formal matter, or, if there's additional information regarding, I think probably given the distance, they're not going to be overly concerned, but sometimes they ask for additional information regarding the foundation, additional clearing, grading, any, if you're going to have to modify the septic system, where are you going to be doing that kind of work? And then if they have any alarm bells, like as far as a certain part of the project, they could give you information on that.
Hold on, this is Commissioner Bassman. Isn't this something that, given the 10:00 something or other at this point in time, we still got some items on the agenda. Is this something you can go over with the homeowner? And then as more information becomes available, the commission, whether it gets an application or whatnot, and review it. My concern is the lateness of the hour and, where are we going with this?
The commission is satisfied with that. I'm satisfied with, I think given the distance of the proposed activity, it's something I could review with the homeowner. I think the biggest question I would have for the commission to consider is it acceptable to waive the wetland soil report requirement? Should an application such as this come forward, given the fact that there is a new wetland delineation, or would you feel that having that soil information would be significant in reviewing this type of application?
Go ahead.
This is Commissioner Boda. I think what we talked about a little bit earlier in the evening, when we don't have that wetland line contested and we have recent information on it, I think that we can use that information. I think the other, given the list that you said earlier, the other thing I would also want to know about is any increased impervious surface and where that water would be going, how it would be managed.
I personally, it's Commissioner Bassman, personally, I think until you have something that you can look at and see the plan as it is proposed, it becomes difficult to piecemeal what's okay and what's not okay, because you need to look at the plan in its totality.
So are you requiring the report of the soil testing, or should I
think it depends on what it is that you're planning to do.
Well, we're planning to add additions to the property. That's what
I think.
I think Jamie can answer your question, right? Jamie,
yeah,
you understand what I was saying before?
Based on, I think at this point, the best step is for us to schedule a time during office hours to talk about next steps. I think as staff, I can give you a lot more guidance on next steps, and it might be good to have that meeting with somebody from planning and zoning as well. So that way you're getting kind of both land use feedback at the same time.
Okay.
We can do that either via Zoom or in person at town hall, whichever works better for you.
Okay.
So does the commission have any other concerns regarding the notice of violation? Or are you comfortable with closing out the notice of violation?
This is Commissioner Boda. I think we can close the notice of violation.
Commissioner Bassman, we agree. We agree.
Commissioner Steinberg, agree.
Commissioner Papantonis agreed.
Appropriate. All right, so the notice of violation is all set, and the homeowner will reach out to our office to schedule something to discuss further steps for our application.
Great. Thank you for your attendance this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a notice of non-compliance regarding inland wetland 200301 58 East Industrial Road, which is a contractor yard, non-compliance with erosion control plan and site layout.
Jamie Frederick, inland wetland agent. I don't know if the commission really wants me to dive into this one. I am expecting them to have something submitted for the April meeting. Right now, I could give you a status update, but I don't think there's a whole lot that's going to change trajectory from now to then. Okay.
Sounds like we want to table this.
All right. Table to the next meeting.
Great. Cease and correct 131101 and 117 Flax Mill Road. Filling.
Jamie Frederick, inland wetland agent. So it's come to my attention that there's a new property owner. Historically, as you can probably tell from the CC number 13, meaning 2013, there was filling on the property. There was a cease and correct order issued to the violator and the property owner. And there was pretty minimal traction on getting it to a resolved point. So it's still an outstanding violation. It is filed on the land records. It seems that did not come up during the title search process, but it is there. And it does need to be resolved. I did meet with the property owner, I want to say on Wednesday, out at site to just kind of view the conditions and talk about next steps. They are interested in putting in an in-ground pool. And I told them that, part of that review process, the violation would have to be resolved as well. And we discussed that the resolution to that violation might look a little bit different now based on current site conditions and timing. In that the best way to move forward would probably be to hire a soil scientist to reassess that plan, the current conditions, and potentially ask for a modification to the mitigation plan from the commission. The property owner requested the opportunity to have a brief meeting with the commission. I told them it would be very high level because I have not had a chance to really dive through the file too much. But I think it'd be helpful to kind of provide a little bit of guidance if possible on what kind of information the commission might be looking for. It was a significant amount of fill. I think at this point, the question is, unfortunately, a little bit of whether it's more beneficial to remove that fill or to perhaps keep it in its stabilized position. And I think that's part of where the soil scientist comes in play. And I think the other question is regarding whether or not there needs to be an updated survey for the pool and or the violation. We do not have anything that identifies the toe of slope on a site plan. And we don't have anything that identifies the amount of direct wetland impact. So that's a very high level. And I don't know if the commission feels comfortable providing any initial comments or feedback to the applicant. If you want, I can let me pull up the site plan that we have on file and then one photo of the fill that I think will put it in context for the commission pretty well.
How much longer?
I promise everything else on the agenda will be quick. All right. So here's the survey that we have on file. You can see the existing house. It says proposed addition. There is an existing addition. I'm not 100% sure if it's in that configuration. Existing deck. There's actually a deck that goes the full length of the house. Septic. And then this is the wetland delineation that we currently have on file. and the fill probably goes somewhere to about here. It does definitely encroach upon the wetland. If I share a aerial image, this is, I believe, the 2019 aerial image, and the contour lines that you're seeing are derived from 2016 flyover information, so they're not terribly accurate, but they are what we have for latest contour information. And you can see that there's definitely been some filling activity along this wetland edge area. And then, nope, sorry, this is the wrong file. All right, and then so you can see there's a tent down here. This is from okay, this says 2022, but that's not right. I think this is from 2006. And then you can see that this is all fill in here. It's a little bit challenging also from my initial look at the file to really tell, because there's been historical filling over time on this property, and they were told to remove the fill to a certain point, but that certain point isn't clearly defined anywhere. So that's, again, part of the reason why I think it might make more sense to just kind of reassess the current situation. And so I definitely, bare minimum, think a soil scientist is involved in that process. And I'm not sure if the commission would be looking for an updated survey. That survey needs to include topo, or if it just needs to include an updated wetland delineation, toe of slope, top of slope, or if you're not prepared to make too much information at this time, because it is late and you have not had a chance to look at the file either.
The last thing that you said, definitely a wetland delineation. Anything beyond that, you're looking at mashed potatoes now. Like,
yeah,
my brain is actually falling asleep. My eyes are open, but my brain is.
Yeah, checking. We need to wrap things up here, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have? Okay. Do you want to open it up for any comment from the property owner or no? Next time?
I would say no at this point, because
next meeting.
There's a lot going on with this site, and I think we need to have a fresh mind, fresh eyes when we review this.
Okay. And perhaps that new wetland information can help guide the conversation at the April meeting.
For sure.
Okay.
All righty. Other business. We have one inland wetland 191101 1151 West Main.
This item is tabled to the April meeting, hopefully for the last time.
Moving along, you've got an agent approval.
This was a deck in between house and pool. It wasn't any closer to the wetland than said pool. Minimal activity and disturbance, signed off on as agent approval.
Great. The aquatic pesticide permits, these are, we only comment on these, right?
Correct. It's the commission's practice to potentially provide comment should somebody have particular knowledge regarding a certain water body or something like that. I did take a quick glance at the permits. 9 Tucket Road is a repeat permit. 14 Long Point Road is new, but it's pretty standard to what we typically see.
And the permit for 9 Tucket Road, is that the club or?
No, that's a residential property. I believe the pond actually spans 2 properties, but they just treat the portion that's on their property.
Gotcha.
I think.
Okay, House Bill 5616, there was a public hearing, a committee public hearing on it. This is proposed, one of the bills in the legislature that deals with inland wetland items. not the least of which is the requirement that instead of one commissioner having to have training, all commissioners would have to have training every other year, and that the feasible and prudent language would be altered in such a fashion that it would give us less leverage. It has not gone anywhere since, let's see, Monday was, I think, the hearing, or a week ago Monday. It hasn't gone anywhere in committee. At that point, there was a lot of testimony against, if you will, H bill, but it 5616, but it bears watching, especially that feasible and prudent area. Anybody else have anything?
Motion to adjourn.
Real quick, just welcome to the new commissioner, Mr. Ormerod.
We're not always here until 10:30. Just once a month.
I didn't want to scare you off, Matt.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.